Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're looking at a deeply powerful story today that fundamentally challenges how we view success, wealth, and status. And look, I know it sounds like a simple fairy tale on the surface, but it's actually this incredibly rich, dynamic exploration of karma, resilience, and the true essence of leadership. And it's all told through the life of a man named Ramdan.
So I want you to think about this. Can honesty truly change your destiny? You know, in our fast-paced, sometimes cynical world, it is just so easy to believe that the ruthless get ahead, while the honest, well, they kind of get left in the dust. But today's narrative really pushes us to examine human character. It asks us to consider whether unwavering integrity might actually be the ultimate currency when the chips are down.
Let's start by looking at the foundation of our story. Part 1. The Storm of Adversity. Ramdan's Crisis.
Now, what's really interesting here is how fast things fall apart. We're in Dharmpur village with our main guy, Ramdan. He's a poor farmer, and his whole life completely depends on the land and the weather. He's literally right on the verge of celebrating a life-saving harvest, and then, bam, the bottom drops out. Step 1, we get these torrential, unseasonal rains that flood his fields and destroy his entire crop in a single night. Step 2, his greedy moneylender Seth Hiram seizes his ancestral land because Ramdan can't pay his debt. And Step 3, just like that, instantly homeless and penniless, Ramdan and his family are forced out of their village and into the dark, unforgiving forest. This is the absolute valley of despair in our hero's journey. To really understand the forces working against Ramdan here, just listen to this quote from his antagonist Seth Hiram. Ramdan is begging for just a little more time to pay off his debt, and Seth coldly replies, "I care about paper, not emotions." Wow, it brilliantly illustrates the cold, calculating reality of greed, right? The moneylender operates completely devoid of empathy, totally focused on legal technicalities and personal gain, no matter the human cost.
And because of that sheer greed, Ramdan, his wife Sunita, and their hungry kids are left with absolutely nothing. They are forced to wander into the unknown darkness of the forest. But then they stumble upon an old sage sitting by a ruined hut. The sage offers them this broken-down shelter, not because Ramdan has anything to trade for it, but simply because, as the sage points out, Ramdan has an honest face. It's just a tiny glimmer of grace in total darkness.
Which brings us to our next chapter, Part 2, Power of Relentless Struggle.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive contrast between our two main characters. On side A, we've got Ramdan, who is working purely for his family's survival, driven by deep love and unwavering honesty. Then on side B, we have Seth Hiram. He hoards wealth, he's driven entirely by greed, and he lacks any basic empathy. These aren't just personality quirks. These contrasting mindsets dictate literally every single choice they make from here on out.
Now, despite the brutal conditions, Ramdan maintains this incredible perspective. He tells his family, "We have nothing, but we are together." That is the biggest thing. Think about the real-world value of that emotional resilience for a second. In times of immense hardship, family unity and emotional grounding can be the literal fuel that keeps you alive. It's such a powerful reminder of what truly matters when every single material thing is stripped away.
So Ramdan's day-to-day life becomes this absolute, grueling grind. He goes deep into the forest to chop wood, hauls it to the market to sell for pennies, and buys meager rations, we're talking plain potatoes and onions, just to keep his kids alive. And here's the crazy part. Even though his children are hungry, they stop complaining. Why? Because struggle has literally become their habit, and Ramdan's relentless hope for a better future becomes the fuel that sustains the whole family.
But you know, relentless hard work rarely goes unnoticed forever. That brings us to Part 3, the magical Golden Cave. So one day, Ramdan is just trying to earn a little extra cash. Maybe buy his daughter some sweets and his wife a new sari, and he wanders way too far. He gets entirely lost in the deep forest right as a massive storm rolls in. Seeking shelter, he stumbles into this glowing, dreamlike cave, and as he walks inside, he discovers an entire village that shines like pure gold. There are no normal people anywhere, but it's ruled by this mysterious aging king. And this leads us to an absolutely crucial point. When Ramdan explains his simple, honest struggle to survive, the king says to him, "People like you are the real kings, Ramdan, who fight to save their families without complaint." The story is actively shifting the traditional definition of royalty right here. It's telling us that true nobility, it's not about bloodlines or hoarding wealth. It is all about the content of your character and the quiet dignity of handling your daily responsibilities.
See that massive zero? That represents the absolute zero hesitation the king had in rewarding Ramdan. Seeing his pure intentions, the king immediately gifts him a chest of gold coins. And he makes it very clear this isn't charity. This is an award, strictly earned by Ramdan's hard work, his honesty, and his total refusal to let adversity corrupt his soul.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because notice the methodical steps Ramdan takes to get back on his feet. He doesn't just take the gold and get lazy. First, he immediately pays off his debt to Seth Hiram. Second, he reclaims his ancestral land. Third, he leverages his experience to open a proper wood and coal business. And fourth, because he conducts his business fairly, he quickly gains the profound respect of his entire village. He literally uses his windfall to build a sustainable, honest life. But what about the man who put him in the forest in the first place? Let's move to part 4, the downfall of greed.
You see, Seth Hiram simply cannot stomach seeing a poor man succeed. His suspicion and his greed just completely consume him. So he secretly stalks Ramdan into the forest, watching him return to the cave to thank the king. Seth is totally convinced he can use his cunning brain to march right in there and steal the magical treasure for himself.
But here's the catch. The cave is a mirror of the soul. When Seth enters, the golden light completely vanishes into total darkness. The king rejects him on the spot, delivering this powerful verdict. Your greed will take you away. Your punishment is decided by your actions. Seth is literally dragged off into the darkness by the king's guards. It is a highly satisfying climax for sure, and it proves a timeless point. Stealing others' destinies and operating from pure greed will ultimately lead to your own ruin.
And that brings us to the core theme operating behind the scenes of this entire explainer, karma. Basically, it's the principle that your actions directly determine your future fate. Ramdan's honesty laid the foundation for his massive reward, while Seth's greed essentially dug his own grave. It's a pretty powerful framework to view our own daily choices through, right? Every action, no matter how small, is a seed planted for our future.
Which leads us right into the final chapter. Part 5. A true king's identity.
So, with Seth gone, Ramdan expands his business even further. But rather than hoarding his wealth, he treats all the villagers fairly. He consciously remembers who stood by him when his family was starving. Even with all this immense new wealth and status, Ramdan stays incredibly grounded. He hires the villagers, pays them well, and proves definitively that his character hasn't been corrupted by the money.
And because of this sustained integrity, we get a massive surprise twist. The aging magical king, who doesn't have an heir, sends a messenger to summon Ramavan in the middle of the night. When he arrives, the king straight up offers him the throne. The king explains he's been watching Ramavan rebuild his life without an ounce of arrogance and realizes Ramavan possesses the true, tested virtues required to rule a kingdom fairly.
And I absolutely love what Ramdan tells his wife Sunita after he accepts. Now dressed in royal robes, he shares this beautifully profound realization. We will not live as kings, but as servants. He completely flips the script on power here. He understands they aren't there to be arrogant royals hoarding wealth. They are there to serve the public and ensure that no one else ever has to experience the hunger and despair that they did.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. What actually defines true leadership? Is it the wealth you hoard or the people you serve? Ramdan's journey from a ruined farmer to a servant king really reminds us that real power isn't found in what we can take from the world. It's found in what we can withstand, what we can build, and ultimately what we can give back to others. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to carry a bit of Ramdan's resilience into your own life this week.